So, I know you might be thinking, how on earth does the president's recent anti-DEI policy have to do with colonialism? And maybe some of you are asking, what am I talking about? Well, to avoid confusion, the definition of colonialism from the dictionary is as follows: the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers, and exploiting it economically. The particular verbiage used here would suggest that there has to be at least two independent countries involved. And while you might think there are not, that doesn't necessarily mean that colonialism can't be happening, or at least can't be happening in a different form. Enter neocolonialism, which means the indirect control of one country by another country. A recent example of neocolonialism that you might not think is neocolonialism is when President Donald Trump renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which delegitimizes the country of Mexico, and it completely ignores the fact that most of the inhabitants surrounding the Gulf of Mexico and in the Gulf of Mexico speak Spanish. And it's a very unsubtle move to establish the United States as the superior entity in that body of water. To say like, hey, we're in charge and we are monitoring everything that you lesser countries do. Trump also changed the name of Denali, a mountain in Alaska, back to Mount McKinley. And that move is a subtle stab at Native Alaskans who originally named the mountain Denali. The truth is, these examples are but a small window into the true cultural genocide that is going on right now. And if we don't do anything about it, it could lead to us being forced to submit to a dictatorship. I'm to Exchange Project, and this is how anti-DEI policy perpetuates colonialism. But wait! I promised you a definition of DEI first. Simply put, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's not as much of an idea as it is an actual practice in many universities and hiring firms, where essentially the goal is to promote more people from marginalized groups such as African Americans and women getting hired into positions that they otherwise might not get hired into. It's meant to give those kinds of people an advantage in the same way that white people have always inherently had an advantage in our society based on factors that they cannot control. I also want to reiterate that this system doesn't necessarily exist to hurt white people. Rather, it more exists as a way to start leveling the playing field, as the advantages that many white people have had are now being distributed more equally throughout society, giving more people an opportunity to succeed in this world. Rather, redesigns the whole system so that the advantages that many rich and powerful people have are being redistributed to all kinds of people around the world to make society a little bit more equal than it already is. There's this quote I really like that goes, "When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." That's exactly what's going on right now. A lot of social change is happening. The gender pay gap is getting much, much closer. More and more marginalized communities are finding ways to become successful in this world in ways that they have not before, such as the hip-hop movement, globalizing a large part of Black culture. And if you happen to be, say, an old white guy, you might feel a little threatened because all of these other people who don't look like you might start to think, hey, why are these people getting all the rights? Why can't I have any of the rights? I want the rights. And that's why this kind of policy about taking down DEI is happening throughout the Trump administration. These billionaires are scared that their power is going to be lessened, so they're doing everything they can to make sure that they and their families stay on top of society. The way in which this is happening is in large part focused on dismantling DEI related programs at universities, such as LEP resource centers, which are meant to help students who do not understand English quite as well as some of their peers. It aims to defund a lot of federal research that goes into stuff like the psychology of LGBTQ plus people and why trans rights are human rights. And they're laying off a ton of federal workers in order to cut costs in these organizations that he deems not essential. And he's even trying to ban courses and books that teach us about our culture and our identity. He's basically trying to homogenize society in a way that really reminds me of colonialism. And this whole plan sounds a lot more like oppression than giving a scholarship to a black person so they can go to university, right? I don't know, as a social justice advocate, I can't take this. And that's why I'm making this video. I need you guys to know that this kind of thing is not okay, and this is not a matter that we should be silent about. We need to keep ourselves informed and keep ourselves on the right side of history so that when the time comes, we do not submit to this idea of an authoritarian dictator. We need to embrace our culture, embrace our identity, and embrace the exploration that other people go through in order to find it. What really is the difference between this kind of thing and sending Native American kids to boarding schools in the 1800s to make them forget their language? This whole we don't see color approach is really just trying to integrate everyone in society as an American. And I think that that's just wrong, and that we need to do something about it. I want you guys to take a second and imagine that Trump installs himself as the dictator of America. How would that make you guys feel? How would that make the founding fathers feel? They sure didn't like monarchies or autocratic systems. If you guys take away one thing from this video, I want you guys to remember that your identity, your culture, what makes you you, is important. And no dictator can ever take that away from you. Hope this helps. See you guys in the next video. Please subscribe so I can pay for college.